Thank you. The office of, the next item on the agenda is the statement of the chair. I just want to let everyone know that the Office of the Department of Education and the Office of the Governor have been working together regarding board meeting procedures, and we will send an electronic copy to all the board members after the meeting later today, and that we're also going to have an opportunity to work jointly with some board training. And I would like, however, I would like to highlight just a few meeting procedures for today's meeting. To conduct business, I plan to generally follow Robert's Rules of Order. For action items only, we will take a roll call vote. General comments to the board will be taken during the general public meeting segment of our meeting today, but the public comment on specific items will be taken at the time when the agenda is, and when the item is on the agenda. So that's a change from what we've done in the past. So general comments will be at the start of the meeting for any topic not on the agenda. But if we have comments regarding agenda items, they'll be taken at that time. The public is invited to sign up before the start of the meeting for any comments and may have up to 5 minutes in length to have their comments. Becky, do we have any general comments today? No. All right. Having none, we are ready for best practices, innovation, and education. And so we are very excited today to have the successes of the reading program in the Richmond Community Schools. And we have with us today Superintendent Alan Brough, and we have Kathy Parker, Director of Office of Student Achievement, and Linda Morgeson, President, Board of School Trustees. And they have a brief presentation for us on their reading programs that they are doing in Richmond. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having us today. It's an honor and a privilege to be up here. We'll try to condense over a decade of work into the next 10 minutes or so. Our reading program at Richmond is still in an evolution. We have all the different issues that an urban center faces. We have the poverty, we have the high mobility, we have great diversity, and we have issues of new science coming the way of reading instruction. What we're going to have to do now is determine how this works. And it should be with the arrows.
There we go.
All right. I have with me today our board president, Linda Morgeson, and she's not here just as board president. She's here because she is one of our reading specialists. She's worked with the Department of Education in the past, and she has been a teacher with us for several years. And after retiring, she became a board member, and she is our president this year. So she's here not just to support as president, but also to talk about the literacy effort that she has witnessed, been a part of, and has helped to direct. Kathy Parker, Dr. Parker is with us. She's our director of the Office of Student Achievement. She also has helped direct where we are today. And everything comes together towards the end of our presentation when you can see exactly where our efforts have taken us. I'd like to turn it over right now to Dr. Parker and let her begin talking about, or Linda Morgeson. This is going to be rather informal, and I'll let them talk about where we've been and where we're headed. Thank you.
Good morning. Like many schools in Indiana, we went through a period where we were experimenting, and we had at one time 10 elementary schools using probably 10 different programs in the area of reading. We had a previous adoption of a BASIL, and we had schools saying, this isn't meeting our needs. Let's begin doing some research and experimentation. And so some of our schools moved to the 4 Blocks program. Some began investigating balanced literacy. And so from 2002 to 2005, we had a lot of different things going on in all of our schools. And you can see our scores. Those were our 3rd grade and 6th grade ISTEP scores for those years. We just couldn't get above the 70s. We wanted to hit the 80s, and we just couldn't make it. And so, well, arrow. Yeah, well, I'm
Go to next.
trying. Oh, it's like a little trackball, and I never was good with those. I'll turn it over to you. So anyway, in 2005, we attempted to get a CAPE grant from the Lilly Foundation. It was our third attempt in Richmond to obtain one of these grants, and we did. And as a part of that grant, thank you, we wanted to bring the Literacy Collaborative Framework to all of our schools. And so we had pretty much established it at the K-2 level, but through the CAPE grant, we were able to train more literacy coaches through the Purdue Literacy Collaborative Framework and bring it in across the district. And I'm going to let Linda talk a little bit about some of what the training of that involved, because really, at the time, it gave us that conversation around literacy and really started the culture of literacy in Richmond Community Schools, where all of our schools were talking about reading and talking about getting students to grade level. So I'll just let Linda talk a little bit, just a few minutes, about the Literacy Collaborative and what that brought to us.
Well, actually, we began with primary, and it was a comprehensive literacy approach with professional development embedded in everything that we did. And we trained literacy coordinators, and those literacy coordinators got special training at The Ohio State University and also at Purdue University. And our reading was basically within a framework. And during that framework, which our framework was about 3 hours a day, which included comprehensive reading and also writing. And after having success at our primary level, we realized that our kids were moving on and they didn't have the opportunities that our primary students had. So we began training our intermediate coaches also to begin training our intermediate teachers. And this was certainly a process, and it happened over a period of years because it takes time to get everyone trained. And we developed book rooms that were very extensive so that our children were exposed to nonfiction, fiction, all kinds of reading, and we felt that we were beginning to develop that culture of reading throughout our community that is so vital in moving our students to where we wanted them to be.
Thank you. And if you look at our scores, you can see that we really didn't see the growth that we were hoping for. We saw some peaks there, but then we just sort of leveled out. Push the right button this time. We convened an education conference or an education summit. The Wayne County Foundation helped. I'll let Dr. Bohr speak to this.
Yeah. This was around 2007, and in 2007, Richmond High School was deemed a dropout factory by Johns Hopkins. The entire community came around this issue, and we recognized that high school dropouts don't happen at the high school. They happen early on. And the entire community came around the topic of literacy. We developed so many partners at that time, and significant efforts across the community developed. And I would like to talk about one in particular, and it tops our list. It's the Third Grade Academy. The Third Grade Academy was formed by a couple of retired businessmen. Dr. Parker and I, at our education summit, sat in the meeting with these two gentlemen, and the idea started as a camp for third graders that would last for 3 to 6 weeks during the summer. That was not a practical idea, but at least that's where we began. The Third Grade Academy, which is now in its 5th or 6th year, is a summer reading program for kids who have not made the cut scores, either in ISTEP as it was, or the iRead 3. Now, this is a an academy without walls. It's held at different places throughout the community. We have what we call Good Shepherds, and these are retired gentlemen who go into the homes, go to the homes, and if a student doesn't show up, they actually go out there and get them. They are places like the Wayne County Museum where we have our classes. It could be the Richmond Civic Theater, Berlin College is a part of this, the Hayes Arboretum, Morrison Reeves Library, IU. It is only one of our partnerships, but it's probably our most successful partnership. They will take our students again this summer, at least we're working with them right now to formulate our plan. They'll take students again this summer, and they will work with them to steer them towards readiness for the retest, iRead3. The board at one point was so concerned about our reading initiative, our dropout rate, that they established almost what's become a permanent goal, and that is pledging intense determination to ensure that all students read before the age of 10. We know that there's great opportunity before that point, and we know how important it is to bring intensity and urgency to the problem. We have steered all of our efforts around the Big Five, and I'm not bringing any new information to any of you, but that is at the heart of our program. In 2010, 2011, we were given an opportunity, and it was called the Opportunity School. This was at Crestdale Elementary. It was one of our elementaries, and what it was the adoption of a core reading program using scientific research as the basis of everything that we did. We adopted Pearson Reading Street. Actually, I shouldn't say that we adopted it. They adopted us. In the next year, you'll find what they did to assist the entire corporation. This was a year-long professional development, and we saw such interesting gains that we felt compelled to take a look at the entire district. There were other reasons that compelled us to look at the entire district, though. Go ahead.
Okay.
Would you
And
like questions or
Sure.
as you do this, or I don't want to take you off. What were the interesting gains? Can you describe those? Probably looking for some math.
Well, really, the Opportunity School, right before the Opportunity School, is really where it got interesting, because we began looking at our scores and saying, we're not moving how we want to move. Let's look at what the research tells us, and let's look at what best practices tell us, and see what we need to add. And so we took a really critical look at what we were doing, and we felt like with the Literacy Collaborative, we had some real strengths with our students in the areas of comprehension, in vocabulary. But then when we looked at research and we said, you know, these Big Five, we are really weak in phonemic awareness and phonics. Those are two areas that we really need to beef up. And then we started looking at the standards, and basically the standards were what was guiding what we were doing in the classroom, but we didn't have any structure around it. We had no scope and sequence so that a first grade teacher would know, what am I responsible for during this 6 weeks of instruction? What are the mastery skills that my students have to master? And so we began asking questions about phonemic awareness and phonics, and we began asking questions about the scope and sequence. And we also began thinking that we perhaps needed a more explicit instructional model, that a lot of what we were doing was teaching and asking kids to generalize from what we were doing, and we felt like we probably needed to add a layer of explicit instruction where students were told beforehand, this is what we're going to learn, and then they were given models and assessed. So those were the areas that we saw that we wanted to add. The opportunities came along to participate. I remember John Wolf and Anna Schultz calling and having a conference call in my office with our literacy coach at the district level, and asking lots and lots of questions, because we were afraid that we would get locked into something that we didn't have any flexibility with. And so we made the decision to move forward with the Opportunity School at Crestdale, and the professional development that came with that was probably the most important piece of that. Pearson did step up and provide pilot materials for that building, for the whole building, the Pearson Reading Street, which is, you know, one of the approved adoption on the adoption list. And so we used that. And we saw some real success in our scores in that building, and good feedback from the majority of the teachers that they felt that they were making a bigger difference. And so we had that behind us, and then lo and behold, here comes, you know, the Indiana Code and the Indiana Reading Plan, which basically was modeled on the Opportunity School and helped give us the impetus to make a district-wide shift. And that's, you know, if you've worked in schools, that's a very difficult thing to do. There are emotions tied to what we're doing and tradition and the culture. So with the reading plan, we felt like we really didn't have a choice. And so then we were left with, how do we adopt district-wide? It was not our adoption year. We couldn't go out and purchase new books. And so Jason Venturi came with his boss, Kevin Mead, and did something almost unheard of. They agreed to pilot for our entire district the Pearson Reading Street materials. And so all of our elementary schools were provided with the entire series, the 2011 edition, and so that's what we used. They gave us professional development. Their people came in and trained our teachers and coaches, and so we piloted that, or actually brought it in at the beginning of the 2011-12 school year. And with that, all of the things that are a part of that third grade reading plan, we had the 90-minute uninterrupted reading block, that 30-minute intervention period for all students. That's what we elected to do. The law requires you to provide your struggling readers, but we felt that if it was a true differentiation time in that 30 minutes, that we would provide services to all students. So our high ability students get acceleration during that time, our struggling students get remediation, and our on-level students get extra practice. We adopted the M-Class assessments that are provided by the DOE. The Office of Curriculum from the DOE was very, very helpful. John Wolf and Anna Schultz came and did a training for our teachers over the summer, and they have been one phone call away with any question that I've had. We have put a full-time instructional data coach in each elementary building, and again, we adopted the Pearson Reading Street materials district-wide. So this is sort of just a timeline of where our scores were and where they've been over the last couple of years since we've adopted the materials. As you can see, from 2002 to about 2010, we just couldn't land anywhere. We were up and down and up and down. We couldn't get any consistency. And so in the spring of 2011, and actually for the 2010-11 school year, that's where we implemented the Opportunity School and really put a push on the other schools to focus on phonemic awareness and phonics and more explicit instruction. And we saw a spike that year, and then after our first full year of implementation, we were at, I think it's 83% for our third grade students.
Before you go on, Kathy, let me also say, if you peg fall of 2008 and hold that very carefully, I want you to be aware that we also implemented a Safe School, Healthy Student grant that year and put mental health counselors in every building. Communities and schools became a partner in every building. We hired school resource officers, and we have seen nothing but continued improvement. We have been so convinced that that structure of support for the classroom is so important that we redesigned our entire district last year. We closed 3 buildings. We redid all of our grade level configurations. We went from a K-6, 7, 8, 9, 12 to a pre-K 4, 5, 8, 9, 12 configuration. And we eliminated a number of expenditures, enough so that we could live within our means and still support our mental health counselors, the school resource officers, and the communities and schools coordinators. Turn it back to you.
Okay, and we just have prepared slides. You'll notice for 4th grade and 5th grade, there aren't as many years because we didn't used to test our 4th and 5th graders. But you'll see the same pattern for all the grade levels. This is 4th grade, where the last 2 years we've seen growth. This is 5th grade, and this is 6th grade. So we feel very comfortable that our scores are headed in the right direction. As he said, we have a strategic plan for our district with this 90% reading goal for all grade levels. We used to focus on 3rd grade, but then the question is 3rd grade reading enough to get you through life? And so because of that, we've implemented a lot of things at our other levels. At the middle school and the high school, we've implemented Read 180, which is a remedial program for our students who are not on level. It's research and evidence-based. We adopted the Indiana Science Initiative, and we really love that because of the notebooking component. It really helps our students with their writing. And we're approaching literacy at all levels. Our intermediate and high school are studying and implementing the Indiana 6 to 12 reading framework, and we've hired 2 literacy or instructional coaches at the high school level, which is almost unheard of. And they've made a huge difference in just the time that they've been there this year. They're using the Indiana Reading Framework to work with teachers to spread literacy across the content areas. So when you go into classrooms, you will see standards posted, and you'll see teachers working on literacy in science and social studies. As far as the future, we have implemented with Fidelity, and now we're looking at what we're doing and finding ways to bring in the best of what we learned in the Literacy Collaborative as well, bringing in some more interesting stories to supplement what we're doing, but we feel that we're on the right path.
Thank you for allowing us to present.
Thank you, and I'm very excited to have already kind of known what your presentation was going to be about on my travels this summer, and I want to publicly announce that this summer there's going to be a huge kickoff in the state of Indiana regarding reading, because it's about building a culture of readers, and that's what Richmond has embarked upon, involving the community, making sure everybody's embracing that, making sure every child has a caring adult that's going to be working with them on their reading improvement. And so this summer, the Department of Education and statewide partners, all the nonprofits, everybody involved in literacy is going to be getting on board to talk about and promote and engage families in literacy. So we are excited to have you present today, and I look forward to working with you and school districts all over the state of Indiana on making sure we're building cultures of readers. Thank you. Oh, yes, we have comments.
You first. No, go ahead, Dan. Well, I heard about Anna Schultz and some of the help from the state. Excited about what you're doing. There was a lot of money spent for some years there. You had the Purdue programs there, and then last couple of years you've increased. As a state board, what have we done, or the legislature, at the state level in general? What have we done to help you, and what could we do more of in this regard? Because it seems like the last couple of years you really picked up some traction.
We would like to.
You feel good. So we want to learn from what's been helpful. At this level, what should we do more of?
One of the things that we would like to believe is that we had well-trained staff to begin with some of the fundamental principles of teaching reading. But we also know that bringing the framework in has helped us focus at grade level and across the district on some of the pieces of the big 5 that we needed to focus on.
Around phonics, phonemic awareness.
That's right.
Seemed like it really made a difference, huh?
It did.
And then you look at it K-12 more now, so really the assistance, we debated that a bit. Is it too prescriptive? We didn't want to, but that actually seemed, if I hear you right, a framework and a focus seemed to be of help.
It's been a great help. I can't tell you, I will not stand up here and say that there aren't teachers who feel hemmed in by that. And we're still looking at tweaking even our practice to make sure we have more writing. But we also know that with the fidelity we've given to the effort, we have a great place to begin allowing teachers some flexibility in bringing some of the reading that needs to spark the students' interest, but also the focus on nonfiction that this has given us has been so important.
What's your thoughts on I Read 3, you know, the emphasis we put on this reading on level by 3rd grade? Has that been a part of this?
I can't say that that's been a part of this. That effort is still so new that I can't say it has.
And I genuinely am asking. I don't.
The idea of a high stakes test at 3rd grade is a very difficult pill to swallow for most educators. And I do think that the accountability at 3rd grade is absolutely crucial. The high stakes single test, I don't know. The jury's still out on that.
Okay. By the way, I would just comment, I appreciate all of your leadership and commitment and your willingness to do what you did and to share it. It's very admirable.
Thank you. It's been a citywide effort.
Dan, you asked my questions. I just want to piggyback a little bit what Alan and Alan and I have been partners in education for a while, so we were together at Plymouth Middle Schools.
Mike wants me to tell you that everything
No.
I know I learned from him.
That's
We were hoping we'd be more likely to believe the reverse of that.
Alan was a great mentor. I apologize for it. I want to piggyback on this thought. Also, in Adams County, we were the benefit of the Schools Healthy Students grant. And the piece that we're talking about right now, our grant is ending, and we're talking about sustaining what we've been able to establish. And one of the things that we talked about, Alan, was the benefits that we've grown from the stability of the mental health that we've brought in, and counselors into our schools from outside of our districts. And we really believe that's had an impact on our growth, and I appreciate that. I was talking to David just a little bit about this, and I agree with what we're saying. We're fortunate enough to be a new tech high school with a high school reform, and we believe in the authentic literacy model, and that's what you're talking about. And I don't know how much you've done with Schmoker, but some of that. But our comment on the authentic literacy is read in depth, discuss in depth, write in depth, and we think the world is open to us. So when we're talking about new tech, as a high school reform, they want to say, well, you do this, and then we say, no, time out. Understand that our focus is authentic literacy, and new tech supplements authentic literacy, and I appreciate that. But the other thing that I would say to you, Alan, you've had a variety of experiences in different corporations. The one thing that I've kind of struggled with is, and I appreciate the structure of, 90-minute interrupted, on and on and on. But my question back to you folks is this, and since you've been in different things, if there is a district such as, I'm fortunate enough to be in, and there's Adams Central where, our reading scores are consistently 85, 90, that kind of, and how important is it that we are that tightly structured? And as you move forward, you see maybe those structures, as you're talking about some teachers being hemmed in, who may have a great attitude about authentic literacy and say, hey, Alan, I can get that done. You don't have to come and hold, a stopwatch to me to make sure that I'm doing those. So that's my response.
Is that a question?
That's a question.
Well,
Thanks, Alan.
And the answer and a few suggestions.
yeah, we can really only speak for what worked for us. We're in a district, in a community that has had declining economics, and our free and reduced price lunch is over 70% district-wide. Most of our elementaries are in the 90s. And so we knew the students that we were getting came to us very, very weak in vocabulary, and very, very weak in having the foundations in place for learning. And so we knew that we needed to play catch-up. We play catch-up from the very first day of school. We've implemented preschool district-wide. For that very reason, we've applied for the Head Start grant. We're doing all we can to get students where they need to be before they enter our doors. But for us, the Indiana Reading Framework is built on research. It's not just put together. It's research says these are the 5 things that you really need to focus on. Research says this is how much time it takes for students to get the skills they need. K-2, those are so important for us to help kids unlock the code. And once they unlock the code, perhaps it is too prescriptive. I will say that I think where it had the greatest impact for us was K-2, to really bring in those foundational reading skills and put the focus on that. For us, the prescription helped us. It helped us do something that we needed to do, to have the legislature behind us saying, it's not optional, you must do that. It helped us do what we needed to do. If we were in a district where we were consistently 85, 90, I might feel a little hemmed in.
Thank you.
I just had a question for the board. You mentioned adoption of books. Legislatively, didn't that get repealed? And if so, did it, or just the adoption of what books? Is that what?
For all subject areas, there is no approved adoption list except reading, because of the SBRR component
Okay.
in Indiana Code.
Okay.
That's true.
Your 30-minute RTI time, how do you, if you can speak to, how do you break down and replace your students, and do you do that across what grade level?
I'll let Dr. Parker speak to that, but I will also say that one of the reasons that we reconfigured our district was to provide enough sections in all of our elementary schools to allow for the flexibility in that grouping. If you have a single section or even a double section school, sometimes that RTI is very difficult to pull off.
And we have allowed each school to work within their staffs to come up with their schedules, but what seems to be the most effective is to do a staggered schedule throughout the day so that first grade has what we call leap time, all at the same time, and then we flood first grade with all of our resources. So all of our Title I paraprofessionals, our special ed paraprofessionals flood that grade level, and they spend 30 minutes. And how we group students is at K-2, we rely heavily on DIBELS, the M-class assessments. We also rely on our weekly and unit assessments from our materials, and then progress checks along the way. So those are very fluid groups. Students may be in a group for a week and then move to another group, and so we place students that way. And the staggered schedule seems to work best. We had a school that tried to do it all at once, but it makes it hard to get the resources where you need them.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm kind of operating a little slowly today, and we kind of jumped quickly through board member comments. Could I just make a brief
Oh,
comment?
sure.
I just wanted to tell the board that I received a very nice note from Dr. Bennett. I wish I had brought it, but in my kind of semi-fevered state this morning, I forgot. But he wanted to let all of you know how much he appreciated the gift we gave him before he left, and that it's in his foyer at home, and he sees it every day and reminds him of us and the work we did. So I just wanted to again thank you all for supporting that and providing that gift for Dr. Bennett as he left.
And
And I'll
Thank
bring
you.
the note next time just so you can all see it.
under board member comments, I want to compliment Glenda and also Governor Pence, and an appreciation to David Dressler for the Indiana Education and Workforce Innovation Network meeting we had last Friday. Powerful. And Superintendent Ritz and Governor Pence both did a very good job, and I appreciated how collaborative they worked.
Thank you. Thank you.
David, thank you.
I just had a question. Did you want me to cover Common Core under this item or under board operations?
I put it under discussion,
Okay.
if that's okay. I thought
Sure.
people might want to have comments and discussion of your presentation. We are on discussion, introduction of the new executive personnel and the new department organizational structure. And I believe we have a PowerPoint slide. Thanks, Becky. We are working with an organizational structure at the Department of Education, and I would like to introduce several people and talk to you a little bit about the organization, and board members have your own copy in front of you. Obviously, I'm on the top row, and then Sarah Russell, my executive assistant. Sarah, if you're here, she might be back at the DOE. She is. And then Trish Whitcomb Sipes is my special advisor. Trish, if you would stand. Thank you. And then Craig Hartzer, my chief of staff. Thank you, Craig. And then you can see we're going to have in the yellow area, it looks kind of green up there, we will be having a deputy superintendent of public instruction. We have posted this position and are interviewing currently. Scott Reske will be the executive director of government and public affairs. Scott, thank you. And then Michelle Goff is our interim general counsel. Michelle, thank you. And then David Galvin, executive director of communications. And he's probably off working on communications. I'm sure he is. And then we have another executive director of operations that we have posted posted and are currently interviewing for. And you can see that we're going to have a different approach in our work, starting back over at the Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction. That individual will be in charge of some very large divisions. One will be outreach. The plan is to have outreach teams in 9 regions in the state of Indiana that will coincide directly with the education service centers that are already in place. And so we are looking forward to getting the outreach teams ready. And so we will have an assistant superintendent in charge of outreach. Then Risa Renee is now our new assistant superintendent in charge of school support services. Risa, if you would please stand. Thank you. And then Amy Horton is serving as our interim assistant superintendent in charge of student achievement and improvement. Amy, thank you. And then Scott Resgate will be having committee oversight, the State Board of Education and working with the State Board of Education group and the roundtable, as well as federal relations. And we do have a director of U.S. relations. And if Jeff Coyne is here, if you could please stand. He's going to be a pretty important person. That's a position that we've not really had before, I don't think, in the past, direct contact with U.S. Department of Education to be sure that we're aware of all grants and having communication regarding those and making sure we're making timelines and working through that. And then David Galvin will be overseeing communications and policy and research and the entire technology department on education technology and the network and infrastructure, which is a really big task. And then, of course, the Executive Director of Operations will be overseeing the financial portion of our operation and making sure that we're running smoothly. I will entertain any questions that you might have regarding the organization.
Where is assessment?
Assessment will be under Amy Horton, Achievement and Improvement.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just would like to ask you to consider adding parents within the outreach element.
Oh, yes, there will be a parent component. Thank you. Turnaround work will eventually be in the outreach portion. We plan to hire outreach coordinators that live within the regions in which they are serving. And eventually, the schools within their region, they'll be responsible for support. And if there are turnarounds in their area, then they will be directly responsible and will already know the schools, will already know what the issues are that we might need to address. Oh, sorry, Becky. Becky. And Becky Bowman, who serves as the Executive Director of the State Board of Education. Thank you, Scott.
I can't see from back here, so where does the responsibilities or educative preparation, where does that lie?
Yeah, all of the instructional components and preparation and licensing. Licensing will be under Risa Renee. But teacher effectiveness will be under student achievement and improvement. And we are still working to be sure that we have all the divisions underneath the right titles. I did not bring with me today the breakdown for every division underneath the Superintendent of Public Instruction, nor the other divisions with me today. Thanks. All right.
Thank you.
Moving on. We have the Turnaround Academies update, and I believe board members have received these, the updated reports that we receive monthly. Emily Richardson from the Turnaround Division of our department is here with us today if you do have questions. Seeing none. We are ready for the NASB Common Core presentation. Joe?
I'll be brief. I supplied the entire board and Glenda a copy of Superintendent Ritz, a copy of the notes from NASB, and I just want to cover some very short points, bullet points. 3 primary shifts in ELA and reading are to build knowledge through content-rich nonfiction and to shift from 90 minutes to now a 50-50 nonfiction and fiction, so that standards, it would include Shakespearean plays, founding documents, great discussions, and writing. So I think it was pretty closely aligned with our presentation today. Reading and writing and speaking grounded in evidence from text, both literary and informational. Regular practice with complex text and its academic language. These were the three primary components that Common Core would affect in terms of shifts. Now let me say first and foremost, there's a lot of discussion that this is a government mandate. This came about as 46 states came together voluntarily with teachers and leaders to create the best Common Core and to reduce standards so that they were achievable and are achievable. While Indiana does and has always been given the best of the best rating for our standards, the issue is delivery, and I think all of us can agree on that. And the primary focus simply is mastery versus memorization, and everybody knows that. But it was good to have it reaffirmed through NASB. The three shifts in math were focus strongly where the standards focus, and key in on problem solving. Coherence, think across grades and link to major topics. And rigor, in major topics, pursue conceptual understanding, fluency, and application for college and career readiness. As I close on sharing that, I want to be sure that this is available as a public document. I'm sure it is, through Freedom of Information. And just wanted to ask the board if they still support Common Core, not as a motion, just as a discussion item. And or if there are any questions.
One of the things I hear from educators I hold in esteem, they're not anti-change, or how many different issues can they focus in on at once? And if you change standards, they've really been working hard on our Indiana standards. And then test and assessments were aligned with that, and growth. And I guess they aren't saying no, or I don't seem terribly excited. They have a look of wonderment. I don't like, we want to do that too, but
Yeah.
how do you do all these things at once?
But-
And that isn't only to you, Joe, I guess
No.
to the board. What are people hearing about that? That would be on a very professional level. How do we implement it well when we've been, all these other,
There was a
like this Richmond presentation,
Yeah.
there was a focus the last 2 years, and now is this another deal, and does it take us off our path? And those are the kind of things I
Sure.
hear.
We had one session and 46 people were representing 46 states. And the interaction was about instructional materials and assessment. And instructional materials don't have to be changed, just as long as they're still aligned with Common Core. And most of our efforts are way ahead of most other states because many of the Common Core, according to this presenter, used Indiana standards.
Talk
So-
about assessments.
And then on assessments, they talked about, there are 4 that may be optional to us. One is ACT, one is PARC, one is Smarter Balance, and there's another one I think that NWEA is working on. And it's up to us what we embrace.
Remind me of the timeline.
But I also want to say too, Dan, I mean, as an educator, we've been preparing for this since 2010 when the board voted to adopt Common Core. And so in our corporation, our kindergarten and first grade are fully implemented Common Core. As a 6th grade teacher, I'm now half and half. The DOE has been providing Common Core transition documents and transition plans for us. And so they've been each year saying, okay, here are the Indiana academic standards. Here are the ones you can start dropping to add these Common Core standards, because these are the ones that are most closely aligned. And then the next year we got another transition document that did the same thing. It dropped a few more Indiana academic standards, because the truth is, there are 56 6th grade language. I mean, yes, they're an A+ if I can teach all 56 of them. Well, good luck. You know, and so the Common Core narrows them down and refocuses so I can teach things a mile deep instead of an inch deep and a mile wide. And so we've been, as teachers, on this transition plan, heading in that direction. So it shouldn't be any shock to anybody. It's not, today we're gonna start Common Core and we're gonna drop Indiana Academic Standards. We've been on this road transitioning as schools and as teachers for the last couple of
So,
years.
Carrie, I hear you saying it takes professional attention, and I'm sure but we haven't left people in the dark. It's not an impossible transition.
No,
We're in the
and-
process, and if you're paying attention, we're not talking about it being easy. but
Right, no, absolutely
There's a
not.
way to get here. We're not throwing a hardball at people that they cannot.
It
achieve.
isn't, gosh, today I didn't know this is something new, and now I have to do this. This has been a transition that people have been, you know,
Chipping away at.
should have been ahead and should have, and I've met with people. I had the opportunity last month to go to the park. I'm proofreading the park test. And so there were 25 educators who were proofreading it. But in between, you know, you talk and you communicate. Indiana's ahead. Indiana, you know, when I talk to other people about, well, in this state, gosh, your state has transition documents. They're helping tell you what you need to be refocusing on. I mean, they wish they were in Indiana, because Indiana's done a really good job of transitioning teachers and giving us the documentation, and giving us the information, and not leaving us in the dark and throwing us a curveball at the last minute.
If I can, I appreciate your comment. I've rarely seen an issue more demagogue, inappropriately, and more misinformation about an issue as I've seen with Common Core. All kinds of criticisms that are inaccurate or misleading and really unfair. This board deliberated quite extensively, reviewed information and analysis for quite a period of time, and made a decision, I think a very appropriate decision, to endorse these Common Core standards, which I think are the future and essential for Indiana to maintain, first of all, maintain its leadership position in setting standards, but also, as Jamie Marasotis makes clear in a very superb column yesterday, we have a long way to go in terms of where we need to be with preparing our workforce and preparing young people for the kinds of challenges that they're going to face. Common Core is only one part of the solution. It's not a panacea in itself, but it's an important part of the solution. And to step away from Common Core, to go backwards, would be a terrible mistake in my regard. I think it's inappropriate for the legislature to opine on this. It's something that is supposed to be the bailiwick of the board and the department. And I sincerely regret the efforts in the legislature to repeal Common Core, to pull Indiana out. I think it would be a tragic mistake. To finish, to quote Marasotis' column, and this is someone who has no political stake. He's completely bipartisan. This is the chairman of the Lumina Foundation, which has been incredibly generous and supportive of initiatives around the state on both K-12 and higher education. But as he says, retreating from the Common Core, to retreat from the challenge of implementing Common Core would deprive both our teachers and our students of the 21st century tools they need to achieve a 21st century education. Retreating from Common Core would be a timid action at a time when bold steps are needed to ensure that our children will succeed and thrive in the 21st century economy. So I certainly think it's appropriate, whether it's in a formal motion or not, for this board to indicate or reaffirm its commitment to Common Core as we did when we passed it in 2010.
I'd like to second everything that Neil just said. I read that same column last night. It's a very powerful piece of work, and I hope every legislator reads that, and the rest of you should also.
I get, if I may, an external and then a personal perspective. Looking at Indiana from the outside, we need to be very careful not to separate ourselves and in essence tell the nation, we're going to measure ourselves, you don't measure us. Because once we do that, it's death to economic development, it's death to capital investment, it's death to building the people infrastructure, because the people that want a great education will have been sent a signal that we think we know better than the rest of the country. That's just the reality we live in. And we just need to be very careful not to to separate ourselves in a way that makes us maybe feel a little better. I echo Neil's regret about the legislature having taken this up. And we need to make sure that we're enabling the rest of the country to see how good we are on their terms, not just on our terms. But I'd want to close my comments by going back to what Superintendent Ritz said at the beginning. I'm comforted to hear that she and the governor have a dialogue on these issues. I was comforted to see her testimony before the legislature that said, don't be abrupt, let's study this. I just hope that everybody understands, unless there's a different motion, which I don't hear, that until the board decides otherwise, we're in Common Core and we're proceeding on Common Core. If we get to a place down the road where maybe adjustments toward growth or something like that is an appropriate thing for Indiana to do, that's one thing, but I'd echo Neil's thoughts that we shouldn't be seen as backing away from this.
Seemed, Joe, you asked a question.
Well,
Are we still behind it?
well, actually Neil made,
Yeah, I think Neil made a motion, I
Well,
think.
I don't know if I kind of want to hear from my colleagues. I certainly, at the very least, like to make sure that the board's support and commitment for Common Core in 2010 is understood by the legislature. And to Dave's point, that it remains, something that we continue to support unless there's extremely good evidence and analysis to suggest otherwise. This is not, Joe made a very important point, this is not something that was forced on us by the federal government. This is not a federal takeover of education. This is one of the few things that is bipartisan, that Democrats and Republicans together support. The Obama, the Obama Department of Education and then previously the Tony Bennett, Mitch Daniels state administration were working together on because it made sense, because it was the right thing to have standards that are mutually agreed upon, where everyone works, all the states come together and take the best from each other and develop standards that are going to be applied around the country so that we can start making comparisons about how people are doing. I mean, the educational market, the workforce market is national or international. It's not state specific. And so the Common Core standards just make perfect sense in addition to their rigor and their advantage in a number of other ways. So I guess what I'm asking at very least is, could we maybe I will make a formal motion. I'd like to make a motion that we indicate to the legislature in the appropriate manner that the board continues to support Indiana's participation in Common Core and would regret and believe it to be a mistake on the legislature to pass a bill or pass a law that pulled us out of it.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Sounds unanimous.
Okay, motion carries.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe.
I believe we're now ready for the consent agenda.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry.
I apologize again. I really have to blame I think folks know I'm not feeling at my best today. Could I ask one question about the turnaround operations?
You sure can.
I appreciate your
No problem.
forbearance. There was an article in the paper, and I understand there's been some real problems in Gary with the state of the building and pipes flooding and the fighting between the turnaround operator and the school district about who was going to pay for those. Is there any update that could be provided today on how things are going and what the impact that has had on the operations of the school? And again, thank you.
Actually, I think I'm probably the one to give you an update on that.
Great.
We are having meetings and setting up more meetings regarding the turnaround. We're going to be having DOE is going to be having a meeting with Edison to go over things. There is a lack of contract between Gary and Edison regarding the maintenance of the building. In the Indianapolis turnaround schools, we have contracts regarding that, all those issues, but we do not have contracts in place in Gary, Indiana. So therein lies the first issue. So I have been meeting with Dr. Pruitt in Gary, Indiana, and I'll be meeting with Edison soon, and we're going to be exploring what all's going on. Instruction is happening, and I was in Gary just not long ago, so on top of it.
may I add a question?
Sure.
On this issue? You know, I am very comfortable that IPS is taking on the turnaround schools because they have a great experience. I'm very concerned about the next step with Gary and any future turnaround schools. Might we get a plan or some overview in the future on what will happen, with Gary and any future turnaround failing schools?
Yeah, we're going to be dealing with that, the whole topic.
Okay.
And we're going to deal with a portion of that coming up today.
Okay.
So, yeah, I can probably give you a little bit more insight when we get to that.
I apologize, but just, I think what Joe was asking, as I understand it, Gary is in no way involved in any of the issues we're discussing today with regard
No.
to the mayor's petition?
No.
Because the mayor of Gary has not made a petition?
No.
Okay.
And I will tell you that I have spoken with the mayor of Gary, and they do not intend to petition and do not see themselves having the capacity to oversee this turnaround school.
Thank you for that update.
No problem, no problem. Now we are ready for the consent agenda. This does not require any discussion. It's an approval of the revised special education child count for the school town of Munster and the Southwestern Jefferson County Consolidated School Corporation. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We are now down to new business action items. And according to Indiana Code, let me find my paper here.
We're supposed to have a secretary.
Huh? Yeah, the secretary. Maybe I don't have my paper here. Thank you, Miss Becky. I knew someone would have it. The statute requires that the board elect a secretary to keep minutes of board meeting proceedings and maintain custody of board records. The statute also provides that the board minutes and records shall be kept in the superintendent's office. We'll follow Robert's Rules of Order for nominating and electing the secretary. Any member may call out a nomination without being recognized by the chair, and no second is required. When nominations are closed, the number of nominees will determine the next step. If there's only one nominee, I will declare the nominee elected. If there are two or more nominees, voting will be by a show of hands. A nominee must receive at least 6 votes to be elected. I will point out that the role of the secretary, the actual taking of the minutes, can be performed by an administrator of the Department of Education, which would be Becky Bowman. But the secretary would be responsible for reviewing those minutes and getting back changes to Becky in order for those to be distributed. So are there any nominations for the office of secretary?
Neil Pickett.
All right, are there any
A second.
others? Any other nominations? Okay, Neil Pickett, you can be secretary. You're welcome.
Now you feel better.
And thank you very much.
Hands down.
And you're glad you don't have to take copious notes, right?
Yes, thank you, Becky.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the mayor's petition to oversee the Indianapolis Turnaround School operators. Per Indiana Code and public law, the mayor of a city in which there are turnaround schools may petition for oversight of those schools. Mayor Ballard of Indianapolis has filed a petition to the board for oversight of 4 turnaround schools located in the Indianapolis public school system. As superintendent of public instruction, I have been working closely with the mayor's office regarding this local proposed oversight. The mayor's office has before us today a good proposal for this oversight. First, we will listen to the proposal. Then we will take any public comment regarding the topic. Then there will be a motion and a second from the board, followed by discussion amongst the board members, and then we will do a roll call vote. Jason Cloth, Deputy Mayor of Education, correct? Will be making the presentation.
Superintendent Ritz and state board members, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you today. As Superintendent Ritz said, my name is Jason Cloth, and I'm the Deputy Mayor for Education for the City of Indianapolis. On behalf of Mayor Greg Ballard, I'm here to present the mayor's petition to oversee the turnaround school operators in Indianapolis. First, I wanted to provide an overview of our petition, including the operators and schools that would be affected by that petition. Then I'd like to provide you with the brief rationale for the mayor's decision to petition the state board. as well as information about our current oversight process of mayor-sponsored charter schools and results. And then I'd like to share a little bit more about our plans for turnaround oversight moving forward. So state statute allows the mayor of Indianapolis to petition the State Board of Education for oversight of the turnaround school operators that manage turnaround academies in Indianapolis. As you know, Charter Schools USA manages T.C. Howe Community High School, Emmerich Manual High School, Emma Donnan Middle School, and Ed Power oversees Arlington Community High School. I should also note that Ed Power oversees 2 mayor-sponsored charter schools, Charles A. Tinley and Tinley Prep. We ask today that the State Board allow full oversight responsibility of Charter Schools USA and Ed Power, contingent upon amending the existing contract between the IDOE and TSO, and upon receiving funding from the IDOE to hire a director of turnaround schools and to pay for other associated costs of oversight. So the mayor's vision for education in Indianapolis is straightforward. He wants every child in every neighborhood to have access to a high-quality education. And yet what we see in Indianapolis is similar to what we see in large urban areas across the country. Only a few miles separate our suburbs from our urban core, and yet the life prospects of our children are worlds apart. The average 4th grader in urban communities is 3 grade levels behind. Only half go on to graduate from high school. Here in our largest urban district, only 65% graduate from high school, more than 20% of which receive waivers, meaning that they are unable to pass a 10th grade end of course assessment in English language arts or in algebra. They're 7 times less likely to attend college and to graduate from college. Arlington, Manual, Howe, and Emma Donnan have been among the lowest performing schools in the state of Indiana for 7 consecutive years. All 4 schools were rated an F, the lowest category of the state's accountability system, for all 7 years. In 2011, 43% of Arlington high school graduates received waivers, meaning that nearly half of all Arlington graduates were unable to pass an end-of-course assessment. At Emma Donnan Middle School, only 23.8% of students passed both the English and math portions of the I-STEP. So this has not only a profound impact on the children affected, but it has a profound impact on the city of Indianapolis. Since the 1950s, the area that makes up our urban core has lost more than 200,000 residents, while Marion County's population overall has grown substantially, and the Marion statistical average, meaning the surrounding counties, have seen exponentially higher rates of growth. What's interesting is that when you look at the shifts in population that we see, we're losing residents between the ages of 1 and 19. We're gaining population between the ages of 20 and 35, and we're losing population between the ages of 35 and 65. So families with school-aged children are leaving for the suburbs. When you look at the income levels reflected in those same shifts in population, we're gaining population between the incomes of 0 and 25,000, 25 and 35, and 35 and 50,000. Then we're losing population between 50 and 150,000. What's interesting is at 150,000 in household income, we stop losing population. So what we're essentially seeing is middle and upper middle income families, or those with the socioeconomic capital to make different choices about their child's education, are leaving our urban core at a huge cost to the city of Indianapolis and to our residents, meaning less investments available for public infrastructure like roads and parks, and to address housing and other public issues. And so the mayor believes that there is a very clear rationale for our office overseeing the turnaround academies under the direction of the State Board. First, we believe that the mayor's office and State Board are both focused on the interests of students. Our office already has a strong track record of overseeing mayor-sponsored charter schools. Furthermore, the mayor's performance framework provides a rigorous and transparent framework for school performance, and this framework can easily be adapted to meet the unique context of the turnaround academies. Second, the mayor believes strongly in local control of schools. As a locally elected official, Mayor Ballard is directly accountable to Indianapolis citizens for the results of the schools in his portfolio. Through multiple administrations spanning both Democrat and Republican parties, the Indianapolis Mayor's Office has proven an effective oversight body of locally controlled schools. Finally, there is strong local and statewide support for our petition. IPS Board President Diane Arnold, as well as several other IPS board members, have indicated their support. City County Council President Maggie Lewis, both turnaround school operators, and Superintendent Ritz have indicated their support for this effort. We plan on working closely with all stakeholders in our community to ensure the success of these schools. So our 27-point Mayor's Performance Framework is a research-based tool that allows our office to evaluate school performance on 4 overarching questions. We use the school's performance framework as a basis for regular conversations with school leadership. The first question is the educational program a success? We measure things such as the A through F results on the state's accountability model and look at whether or not students are making adequate gains and growth over time. The second core question, is the school effectively well run? We look at financial performance, enrollment, attendance, and retention rates. We look at school leader performance and parent satisfaction. The third core question, is the school meeting all of its obligations? Is the facility safe and conducive to learning? How is the school performing with regards to special education? And finally, the fourth core question, are conditions for success being provided? Our team consists of a director of charter schools and 3 performance analysts, one that oversees academics, one that oversees finance, and one that oversees governance and leadership. Our performance analysts meet with schools on a monthly basis and regularly discuss school performance relative to the Mayor's Performance Framework. These conversations and our team's analysis of data lead to an annual report that's made publicly available on our website. We also require that schools contract in years 2, 4, and 6 with external auditors to look at the performance in depth of each mayor-sponsored charter school. Here's one example of those reports, which include detailed summaries under each subcategory that are available to the public. So our results. Our 20-plus schools serve a high percentage of students qualifying for free and reduced lunch. We also serve a high percentage of students of color, particularly African American and Latino students. Mayor-sponsored charter schools consistently outperform neighboring schools with similar demographics. In English language arts, 75% of students at mayor-sponsored charter schools pass the I-STEP, as compared to 59% in IPS and 70% of all students in Marion County. In math, 74% of students pass the I-STEP, compared to 63% in IPS and 72% of all Indianapolis students. In terms of the state's A through F accountability model, 60% of mayor-sponsored charter schools are A or B schools. 80% are A, B, or C. We have no failing schools within our portfolio. Stanford University recently came out with a study that highlighted the fact that children in Indianapolis attending a charter school make an average of an additional 2 to 3 months of academic growth when compared to their peers in traditional public schools. For children of color and low-income children, it is statistically significantly better for you to attend a mayor-sponsored charter school than a traditional public school. And so what we hope to do is adapt this existing successful framework to meet the needs of the turnaround academies. Once we receive the funding from the IDOE, we will immediately look to hire a director of turnaround schools to manage this oversight process. We will modify the mayor's performance framework to ensure it fits the unique context of the turnaround academies. And our specific oversight functions will include monitoring, so developing a site visit protocol, conducting weekly site visits, presenting actionable feedback to school operators, data analysis, developing data tracking and analysis systems, tracking data on an ongoing basis, and collecting data from members of our community and families. Reporting, we'll develop effective reporting structures to you and effectively communicate with the turnaround school operators as well as members of our community, and we intend to disseminate that information on a routine basis in conjunction with Indiana state statute. And then, in addition, under statute, we will ensure that the turnaround school operators conduct biannual meetings with the public. We'll monitor the teaching credentials of staff employed, and we will let the employees know that they are eligible for public retirement funds. We have also proactively worked with the City County Council to ensure an additional layer of community-based oversight. We will report into the City County Council's Community Affairs Committee twice per year to share information about the turnaround academies and oversight ongoing. Council President Maggie Lewis and Community Affairs Committee Chairman John Barth are supportive of this petition and look forward to collaborating moving forward. So we will look forward, as I've said earlier, to working with a variety of stakeholders. Indianapolis Public Schools intends to be a good partner to support this effort. The turnaround operators will continue to provide their services managing the schools. We will provide oversight of the schools and report into the State Board of Education in partnership with the Department of Education and the City County Council, who are ultimately responsible to the broader public. And so, in closing, the mayor is committed to increasing the number of high-quality schools in Indianapolis. I very much thank you for the opportunity to present and would love to answer your questions. And then I'd also like to introduce John Hage, the head of Charter Schools USA, Marcus Robinson from Ed Power, Caitlin Hannon, an IPS school board member, as well as Ryan Gall and Ian Yearwood, who are both current principals or assistant principals within mayor-sponsored charter schools, to provide 1 to 2 minutes of comments in support of this effort. So thank you so much, and I'd love to answer your questions.
At this time, if you don't mind,
Please.
we're going to have any public comment, and
Great.
then at the discussion time, after a motion's made, we will entertain questions.
That sounds perfect. And just, I don't know that all of these individuals had signed
I
up in
don't
advance.
think so.
So I wanted just to make sure they had the opportunity to speak as well.
Okay. Becky, why don't I give this back to you
Here,
when
I'll
we get
just
to that
give you the
point, and then we'll
list.
have the names on there. That'll be great. Thank you. At this time, we have public comment on the mayor's petition.
Ian Yearwood, who's on the list here,
O-
so.
Okay. That's okay. Are you wanting to do public comment now, or do that during the question and answer time, Jason?
I'm
The-
entirely flexible.
The individuals that you brought?
We could have those individuals speak. I just want to make sure they have.
Okay, that'll be great. Let's go ahead and take the public comment.
Who
Ian?
goes first?
Ian?
We've got 5 people here, whoever.
There you go.
on.
It's your turn.
Hello, Madam Chair. Nice to see you again, board members. I'm John Hage. I'm the CEO of Charter Schools USA. For the last year and a half, we've been under the authority of the state to run the 3 schools, Emmanuel, Emmett-Donnan, and Howe High School. We're making tremendous progress on the ground in those schools. We recently had a joint audit process with the Department of Education and the mayor's office that actually came through those 3 schools and spent a day on site assessing where we are with the school performance. The leaders of those schools are here, and I'm proud to say that we're making tremendous progress. You may have also noticed we've had an embedded reporter, Bobby King, who's been sitting in the Emmett-Donnan Middle School over the last 6 months, and he came out with his 3rd report writing about what he sees on the ground there, and I think it was a very strong, supportive piece of what's taking place on the ground in that middle school. But I'm here today to say that, first of all, we have been working with the mayor's office from the beginning, as you may or may not know, collaborating with them, with their outreach department, and we've had a great working relationship. I also want to tell you that the framework that they have in place is very strong. We've gone through that framework. We believe it provides for strong accountability, and it's very transparent to the public what the performance looks like in these schools that we are, in fact, turning around for the state. And we're very supportive of this process. We think that this makes sense. It provides for local control and support. And I also want to finally say that I appreciate Madam Chair, Superintendent Ritz, who I invited to the schools. She, in fact, spent about an hour and a half, 2 hours of her time to go through how and spend time there and saw classroom instruction, and I appreciate the time that she spent there and the instructional feedback she supported us with there and what was happening. So I just want to say that we're in support of this transition, and I'd take any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Next public speaker, Marcus Robinson.
Good morning. Marcus
morning.
Robinson. I'm Chancellor and Chief Executive Officer of Ed Power. Not only do we have the privilege of working with the great students at Arlington High School on the northeast side of Indianapolis, but we're one of Indiana's oldest charter operators. I've had the, I think, good fortune of being subject to the mayor's performance framework and the due diligence and accountability that they provide in the mayor's office. And I'd say unequivocally that has been the thing that has helped us move the needle the most at the Charles A. Tindley Accelerated School, which started off as one of the lowest performing schools in the state of Indiana to consistently one of the highest performing schools. Not only is it thorough, but it comes with useful feedback about where to go next. And so we're excited that that framework will also be in play at Arlington. We know the process well. We know the team at the mayor's office. They're always not just interested in making sure that we're accountable for what we've agreed to, but also to make sure we have the resources that are necessary to deliver on the outcomes that we're supposed to have. So we're thrilled. I think this is the right move. It's the kind of evolution that we probably never even contemplated when we got into the turnaround school work, an opportunity for partnership, not just with the mayor's office, but with the district as well. I think will benefit the kids at Arlington greatly. So we're excited about this proposal and hope you endorse it.
Thank you. The next speaker?
Ryan?
Yes. Good morning. My name's Ryan Gall. I'm going to echo a lot of what Marcus said, but first, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm the principal of Indianapolis Lighthouse Charter School, located on the southeast side of the city. Additionally, I'm also proud to say I'm an employee of a mayor-sponsored charter school for 7 of the last 8 years that I've lived in Indianapolis. Currently, Indianapolis Lighthouse is in its 8th year of operation and serves students and families with similar backgrounds as the turnaround schools of Manual, Donnan, and Howe. In fact, 74% of our students are students of color, 91% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. In the 4 years I've served as principal of our school, we've leaned on the guidance and support of the mayor's office to transform our building from one that was under-enrolled and underperforming to one that is a highly successful small high school. In fact, last year, 90% of our first-time testers passed their algebra ECA, 78% of our first-time testers passed their English 10 ECA. This year, our first senior class has a projected graduation rate of 96%, none of which with waivers for a Core 40 diploma, and a quarter of those same students will be graduating this year with an honors diploma. Furthermore, 85% of our senior class has already been accepted to a 4-year college or university and is committed to enrolling. During my time as principal, I've enjoyed working closely with the Mayor's Office of Education Innovation to deliver a high-quality education to our students. The Mayor's Performance Framework has given our staff clear performance expectations and provides my school with ongoing feedback related to our academic, organizational, and financial performance. In addition, their office has provided us the resource of 3 performance analysts, content area experts who provide our school with guidance on a monthly basis. These conversations have consistently resulted in tangible changes in our building that have led to a better K-12 education for our students. Their staff's professional, approachable, and committed to holding us accountable. There are many authorizers across the state. However, we're proud to be associated with the mayor's office. The opportunities they've given us through their governance has given us incredible opportunities and has provided a lot of local accountability and oversight, and I know they'll do the same for the turnaround academies. Thank you.
How many, you're a K-12 school?
Yes, sir. I'm only responsible for the high school component, though.
How many students are in high school?
300, 250, I'm sorry.
250 in high school. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker?
Ian Yearwood?
Good morning. I'm
morning.
Ian Yearwood. I've been a 4th grade teacher for the last 3 years at Challenge Foundation Academy, which is a mayor-sponsored charter school, and I'm also the future principal of Vision Academy. As a teacher, it was apparent to me that CFA was held to high standards. My principal and administration were very focused on collecting and reflecting on data that improved not only the instruction in the classroom, but also the culture and operations of the school. For example, at the beginning of every year, our staff analyzed CFA's kids' performance and growth on ISTEP compared to the highest growing students in the state. And throughout the year, we analyzed their progress on our interim assessments and gauged family satisfaction with our service to make sure we were providing a high quality education. At the end of last school year, our scholars achieved 80% proficient on ISTEP, 3rd grade through 5th grade. As a new school leader, I've experienced the mayor's approval process firsthand and can speak to its level of rigor. The process forced my team and I to iron out every detail from budgeting for facilities to developing enrollment contingency plans and everything in between. In order to prove that there was a need for this school, we had to research and gain investment from the community we wanted to serve. And I'm more than confident that we've done the groundwork within our community to make a serious impact on the educational outcomes for these children. The mayor's charter school team made every effort to ensure we were well informed and prepared to be successful through this process. Multiple hearings before the Mayor's Charter School Board and the City County Council ensured that our preparation was thorough and our plans were sound for starting a new school. I'm very proud to say that Vision Academy was successfully approved just over a week ago. I look forward to working with the Mayor's office to maintain a high-quality education for the families of children on the near west side. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Caitlin Hannon.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Caitlin Hannon. I'm a newly elected school board member in IPS. I want to apologize on behalf of President Diane Arnold, who was not available to be here this morning, but she sent me to share her comments. We as a board recognize that we really have no role in this decision, but we're grateful that the Mayor's office approached us with this petition, looking to work collaboratively with the district. As a newly elected, a mostly newly elected school board that's going to be seeking new leadership in the coming months, we look forward to being able to collaborate with the Mayor's office to ensure that every student that lives within the boundaries that we are elected in is receiving the educational opportunities that we hold so valuable. We're grateful for their willingness to collaborate, and we look forward to working with you if this decision is made to support their petition. So thank you.
Caitlin, where
Yes.
did you do your graduate work?
I did it at Marion University.
Shameless. Shameless.
Yes.
And I'll do it anytime I can. Thank you.
I should also mention that I was a classroom teacher at Emma Donnan last school year, so I have a unique perspective in this whole process.
I think it's very important. I really appreciate you taking the time to come. I think this collaboration is really important. It's always been our intention that the state nor the Mayor's office would run these schools indefinitely. They need to go back to the district at the appropriate time. So the willingness and the interest in collaboration will clearly facilitate that. And I'm very pleased to hear it and appreciate your
I think it's a very student-focused choice. Thank you.
At this time, I will call for a motion to approve the mayor's petition for oversight of the 4 turnaround schools located in the Indianapolis Public School System, contingent upon amending existing contracts between the DOE and special management teams.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Now,
and-
further discussion.
Okay, David, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, my only other thing was, I understood that the, working with the present contractual situations and also working with, and I don't know if we want in there, the DOE as far as the amount of dollars that we would contribute toward the supervision, that, because they're asking for
1 FTE.
1 FTE. And so, that would be.
One person.
Yeah, and I would, as long as we could have that, so. And the other question I think that was asked, and I appreciate Neil's comment on there, I think our eventual goal is that these schools return to the supervision of IPS. I think when we went into the takeover situation, our lack of a better word, an exit strategy, and going back to a book that I enjoyed a few years ago, by Norman Schwarzkopf, how are we going to declare victory? When we invaded Iraq the first time, we had a victory. We knew what victory was before we started that situation. My question is here, how will we declare victory? And when is there an exit strategy to this, that the schools are reinstated to IPS? Or is there not an exit strategy, and are we going to move to more charter? Those are my questions.
Good question.
I have one more.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I expressed this earlier, but I want to say it at this time. I support this because IPS has a strong history of, the Mayor's office has a strong history of dealing with education. Could you enlighten me and tell me how long the Mayor's office has been doing this?
It's more than a decade. It was
That's what I thought.
initiated under Mayor Peterson's administration.
Right.
And has continued on with Fidelity under Mayor Ballard's administration.
So my concern is simply, there aren't very many cities or mayors that have that experience. And so I'll be anxious to see the outreach, the turnaround, because it just breaks my heart, the to think some of the mayor offices, wherever you live, that don't have that quality of experience behind them trying to take over a school. I fear it may turn out worse rather than better in some instances. So I just wanted to restate that to you. Thank you.
If I could, I would echo that. I'm very comfortable with you guys taking over, but I want to make sure that we're not setting precedent here and that every case is going to be individualized to who can handle it, who can't, and that was my only concern. Certainly not you guys, but I want to make sure that every case is individual and that we don't put ourselves in the box by doing this first.
Jason, there's a couple of questions, but one of them, could you respond to Mr. Pettibone's question?
Of course. So I think the statute is not clear. And I think our intention is, we can't predict where we're going to be 3 to 4 years from now. And so we want to work with IPS and work with the turnaround operators and the state board to assess where we are and then make the decision as we reach the end of the contract as to what is going to be in the best interest of the children and the neighborhoods in which those schools are located. And so there isn't a clearly defined exit strategy built into the statute. I think it's something we all need to work together to answer.
A couple of questions for you. First of all, could you elaborate a little bit on how you envision reporting or keeping both the department and the board updated on the progress of the schools? Do you envision getting reports coming to these board meetings? How do you think that would work?
I do. So we've been working with Emily Richardson and Jim Larson from the previous administration's turnaround office, and we will intend to mimic the work that they've done and make sure that we're reporting into the state board on a monthly and then more officially on a biannual basis.
Okay. Secondly, can you elaborate a little bit on the expenses that you require?
So our office already has an existing infrastructure and framework, and when we seek to amend the contracts, we're going to, and we've talked with the turnaround school operators about this issue, that they comply with the mayor's performance framework or a version of the mayor's performance framework and accountability and oversight process. We felt that if we added a director of turnaround, and then we're able to offset some of the additional healthcare and benefits, technology, that would be sufficient. But we've been in ongoing conversations with Craig Hartzer about what that specific number should be. And I know that Superintendent Ritz and Craig Hartzer have indicated their desire to make sure we have what we need to be successful.
Okay, well, that's good to hear, because I wouldn't want you to under this and then find you didn't have enough resources to, to keep the proper supervision and control.
And my understanding is that within the current federal SIG grants, that $65,000 is allocated to oversight of these schools for each individual school. And so there's been some discussion of that number as well.
I guess I would just, in terms of discussion, I appreciate the thoughtfulness of the presentation. I appreciate the rationale for the decision on the mayor's office. I too agree that we should be careful not to set a precedent. This is a particular case with a particularly strong, city tradition and background in managing schools. But given that strength, given the commitment, given the support from IPS and from the turnaround operators, I not only see no reason to oppose this, I support it. I think it's a good idea. I think the closer, I think it's clear the mayor's office, the mayor has a real interest in seeing all schools in Indianapolis be successful, whether that be working through IPS, the charter schools, or these turnarounds. These are important high schools, obviously, and so I think you're very well motivated to want to continue and support the good work that the operators are doing in the schools. So as long as we agree that there'll be regular updates and appropriate ones, I like your framework, and I think if we can provide that kind of report to the board to keep us apprised, because it is ultimately our responsibility. We took that on when we made this decision. So even though we're passing on some of that accountability to you, the buck still stops with us. So given that understanding, I'm very supportive. And I appreciate the work that the department has done to make this happen.
There any more comments or discussion?
My superintendent have just more of an editorial, and I appreciate Jason's presentation, doesn't surprise me, I've always been impressed with your work, but the human impact when we visited these schools, and people tried hard, so I'm not into the blaming thing. The human tragedy for the students in those schools is almost beyond description. It's a morally repugnant thing that over many years go to school, it doesn't work. But the data on what it does to a city and neighborhoods, now, causation, there's multiple, I know it's manifold, but mayors and communities and boards looking at their future need to see this data and understand it. It's a human tragedy for the individual, that's enough reason to act. But you basically, a neighborhood and a community has no future if they can't operate schools at a very high level. And I appreciate you taking the time to make that so very clear. And we're not going to have a great city here until we get this done. So look forward to your updated reports. Appreciated the way you put this together. It's crystal clear what we need to do. And it might be worth sharing around the state and always keep this in mind for our state. And Jim, you've done this before us and in other ways, that if this doesn't go forward properly, you can take nativist thoughts about Common Core, throw them away. All these little fights are not demagoguery. It's just not worthwhile. Our future's tied to moving this needle and moving it dramatically.
Move forward, adjusting as necessary. Rule of thumb.
So that's editorial, that's well described for us. We need to keep it in front of us.
Thank you, President Nelson.
I think we are ready for the roll call vote. Joe Blackadder, aye. Jim Edwards? How do you vote? Aye. Dan Elsner?
Aye.
Sarah O'Brien?
Aye.
Mike Pettibone?
Aye.
Neil Pickett?
Aye.
David Shane?
Aye.
Tony Walker is absent. BJ Watts?
Aye.
And Carrie Wicker.
Thank you very much.
Motion passes. Thank you very much for your presentation. The next item on the agenda are board operations. And after having input individually with each of the board members, I'm going to suggest that we go ahead and operate on our monthly scheduled meetings as scheduled. We had some conversation because ISTEP testing windows are amongst some of our dates when we're going to meet, but we're going to go ahead and have the regularly scheduled meetings as already on the agenda.
Thank you.
So,
Will that continue to be the first Wednesday of the month?
yes, yes. So seeing no further business to come before the State Board of Education, this meeting.
I just wanted to say on behalf of the board, welcome. We look forward to working with you.
Oh, well, thank you for the welcome.
Congratulations on
Thank
a
you.
first, a good meeting.
All right.
Way to go.
Thank you very much. This meeting is adjourned.